Good evening now to real estate coach, trainer and auctioneer Tom Panos. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Peter. How you going?
G'day, Tom.
Mate, well, firstly, just as a means of introduction, I mean, a coach and a trainer, we know what an auctioneer is, but in real estate, when you're coaching and training, who are you coaching and training?
It's real estate agents. So, Bill, I work for News Corporation, which is, many people would know, a Murdoch organisation as a head of real estate. But in addition to that, I run a training business and I train real estate agents on being more successful in the business. And I auction on the weekend. So I generally speaking, I would do 8 to 10 auctions every Saturday, like I did last Saturday.
Now, Tom, I actually caught one of those auctions on Facebook in Croydon, very hot. You managed to achieve a strong price, $1.9 million. For a lot of people listening to this program, they would like to have Tom Panos' insights as to what you are seeing amongst investors as an auctioneer and as somebody that's been around for a very long time.
Yeah, so I agree with your earlier sentiments that you're talking about the market being so strong in these colder months, Peter. Yep. That property was 11 Wilger Street. It was actually Concord, 11 Wilger Street, Concord West. It had a reserve of 1.7 million, and it actually sold for 1.9 million, which was 200,000 over. What I'm seeing, Peter, is the fact that a lot of the vendors have gone into hibernation because they've decided to hold off their decision of putting their properties on the market because of the election. And what has happened is there's not a lot of stock on the market, and that's creating good prices and competition with buyers. So I think the smart vendors have actually done the exact opposite, which is, hey, they thought, you know what, there's less properties on the market. Let's go on the market in isolation, not in competition to other properties. And they're doing well. And this was a classic case where, Peter, as you can see, there's some new technology now, and I'd urge people you can actually do live stream. Facebook have introduced live streaming. So that auction was shown live on Facebook, and anyone that was watching it could see that there was very strong heated bidding by around 10 parties on that property.
And that's an option the vendor has, Tom? You offer that, the agent offers that as part of the service, is that right?
No. Generally speaking, what actually happens, Bill, is Facebook only introduced this feature in the last month, and that is that you press live, and with an iPhone, someone holding an iPhone will show the auctioneer auctioning, and that is actually happening live to people's Facebook feeds. Why do people do it? Generally speaking, Bill, they do it because a real estate agent wants to get a bit of publicity because they're always, agents are always after the same thing. If they know the property's going to sell well, they want everyone in the area to find out about it because they want more business.
You mentioned the election there, Tom. Two things. Firstly, does the quite different negative gearing policies between the two major parties have something to do with that caution, or is it just the economic environment in general that they're waiting to have a look at?
Now, there's a tendency, and history shows that every time there's an election, whether there's negative legislation that's on the table or not, whenever there's an election, human instinct is, let's just wait till after the election. Why compete with an election? So usually you'll have less activity for the 2 months before the election, and as soon as the election's over, whether Labor wins or whether Liberal wins, there's always a lot of property coming on the market. This time around, of course, you've got this negative gearing issue, and you've had real estate agents. I was having dinner with the CEO of Century 21, Charles Tarby, the other night, and he told me that they've been pretty coordinated with the other chief executives of the big groups, the Ray Whites and LJ Hookers and what have you, sending a strong message to the Prime Minister and the Treasurer on they believe that the marketplace will actually go backwards and tenants are going to pay more rent if the Labor got in and introduced getting rid of negative gearing. So that's a separate issue on this occasion. But generally speaking, elections, less stock. Before the election, lots of listings after the election.
So, Tom, just on that point, in these conversations that you're having with all these industry people and yourself, going out and meeting bidders and having a real feel for the market every single week, where do you, Tom Panos, see the market, particularly in, say, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, the East Coast, going for the rest of the year. Do you see a flood of property coming on after the election, or do you still think that the strength will be there in terms of demand and supply?
I think that there's going to, Peter, post the election, I see August, September, October, there will be high volumes on the market. I see that particularly houses, they will continue to stay strong because there's an undersupply in the three parts that you just mentioned, particularly when you're talking 15 k's within the city, Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne. There will be good demand, and I continue to see high clearance rates and good growth. I've got a big question mark on units, and that is that there are certain suburbs that have got a plethora of units on the market and more coming on the market. And whilst they're still selling, I notice that there is some people that are asking the question, and that is, what does this all mean? Does this mean that if I buy something and I want to sell it in the future, that I'm going to be competing against hundreds of other properties on the market? Overall, I think real estate is in a pretty healthy state. I do think that there are some suburbs that have got early indications, Peter, that there might be an oversupply of apartments.
Okay, we'll talk to Nigel Edgar from Fraser's Property later in the program, who's the General Manager and Head of Residential New South Wales, about those concerns, because Bill and I have been speaking about them and Nigel has all the facts, and it'll be great to get insights. In terms of Tom Panos himself, what are you looking at buying or investing in terms of your own portfolio? Because, Tom, I've seen a lot of your content online. It's fantastic, but I really wanted to ask you this because I haven't actually seen anybody ask you as Tom Panos, the investor, Tom Panos, the real estate expert, where is he putting his hard-earned money?
Okay, and I don't get asked that question much, and I've actually generally haven't gone off and volunteered it, but I will tell you what I've done.
Okay.
Properties that I've bought myself. The last one I bought was about 9-10 months ago. Was a block of units in Summerhill. So it was an Art Deco block of 6 apartments, and the time before I bought that was a Art Deco block of units in Croydon, in Austin Avenue. So generally, what I buy is I'm in love with the inner west of Sydney. I'm a person that
so is everyone else, Tom. That's the problem.
That's why he likes it.
That's why I like it, because, Bill, what actually happens is, even though I pay top dollar at the time of purchase, I actually know that I'll get top dollar at the time of sale one day. And the simple reason is basic demand and supply. And it basically says that if you try and buy in a marketplace where no one else is buying and you buy cheap, you'll pay that price later on because no one's going to be buying there. Now, if you're going to be one of these speculative people that thinks, hey, I can outsmart the whole Australia and I'll buy somewhere now that no one wants to buy, and one day I'll sell because I know that there's going to be a lot of people that want to buy it, that to me is a strategy that it's out of my comfort zone.
It's risky, isn't it?
It's risky. It doesn't meet my profile as an investor. I'm the sort of person that I go for something that I think has got 70% good capital growth and 30% I worry about the yield. So it's hard to actually get both, where you get an incredible yield and incredible capital growth. But up until where I've been at this stage of my life, I've always, banked more on what growth, and that's why I like the inner west of Sydney, and I particularly like things that are Art Deco, Federation, and it's probably because I know that I'm not going to compete with a lot of the brand new stuff that developers are going to build when every time they get approvals from councils.
Right. Tom, we know you're a busy man and you need to leave us. So last question, just to wrap it up. Advice for those who are looking at selling. You speak to a lot of agents. You're in the marketplace. If somebody's thinking about selling, what's your final bit of advice, and how can they find out more about what you write and what you publish?
Okay. So what I would say, Peter, is try and always do the opposite to what the masses do. So if you know that spring is a time that everyone wants to put their property on the market because gardens look good and the weather's better, do the opposite and actually sell 6 or 7 weeks before them. So you've got less competition. The second thing I would say is you can't sell a secret. Be the best marketed property in the market. You want to be like the big, if you look at Big Macs, some people would argue they're not the best tasting hamburgers, but they sell a lot of them, and that's because they're very well marketed. And it's the same with real estate. The best homes seem to be the ones that are best marketed. They're everywhere. They hit you in the face. I would say that. And to answer your last bit of that question is, where can people get more of me? I mean, I would say if you're a real estate agent, tompanos.com.au. If you're not a real estate agent but are interested in, what I'm doing on a Saturday and maybe watching a live auction and what have you, if they just like my Facebook page, Tom Panos, and between those two things, tompanos.com.au and Facebook, they'll get a taste of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing in the market, Peter.
Well, thanks for giving us a sample today, Tom. We appreciate your time, mate. We know you have to go, so we'll let you do that. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.